Welcome to Surfside Stories. I am so honored to have here in the studio today the man who has taught us about what Carolina beach music is through his awards at his academy. The man absolutely has great stories I've heard. But what I don't know is how you got started into all this. I'm sure it's been a lot of years ago. And so we'd like for you to tell us, Mr. Peter Carpenter here, tell us how you got into beach music and a little bit about the road coming down to where we are today.
Yeah, well, Wayne, it's a funny story. Back when I was a very little small child, of course, my brother Curtis was done mobile DJ work. He was working at the radio station when he was 13 years old. He used to tell everybody he had, when he was working at the radio station, he couldn't be on the air because his voice was higher than what dogs could hear. But back then, actually, you had to be 16 years old and you had to have an FCC license to be on the air. So Curtis wasn't on there, but
he run about how long ago was this?
Oh, this is back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
So he run the automation on Sunday. He run the races. NASCAR was huge back then in our area. And so he run the automation for that and different events. And of course, he started getting into doing mobile DJ work. So he started actually his first mobile DJ party when he was 13 years old.
Okay, you said in our area. Where was?
Pinehurst, Southern Pines, okay. Pinehurst, we're in that area. And of course, Curtis went out and started doing that. And then when he got old enough and got his license, when he turned 16, I'm 5 years younger. I was 11, and Curtis would, he didn't like going out by himself to do these parties. So he said, come on, ride with me. So I'd go do parties with him on Saturday night, and I was sitting there watching him do it. And I'm like, if he can do this, I can do this. It's easy. So it was funny. When I got 13, a couple of years later, he double booked a couple parties, and he said, hey, I'll get you to go do it, and I'll come in after my first gig's over. And of course, he'd come in and I'd have the floor going real good. And he'd look at me and say, you just keep playing. So I played. And of course, when I turned 16, I went full time in the business. So I'm 59 now. So it tells you how long I've been in the mobile DJ business.
Wow.
But I went pretty much full time. 16, I probably used to play 10 or 15 gigs a year. By the time I got 18 or 19, I was doing over 200 a year. I mean, between nightclubs, I worked in several different nightclubs. Actually, funny part is I was a top 40 DJ. I never really was a beach DJ. Now, I played beach music during my private parties and stuff like that. But, I was a top 40 DJ in the clubs for 30-some years. So I played Malibu, Mocha, Broadway at the beach, all over. Played everywhere. Used to play up in Raleigh a lot. And then, of course, we had a couple clubs at Southern Pines called Dockside and Fat Puppies and Broad Street Bar and Grill, and then another one called Bucketheads. And I was the house DJ at all those. But how I got into beach music was a funny story. Back in the early 80s, they had a big festival down in Charlotte. If you've ever been from Charlotte, it's called Metrolina Fairgrounds Beach Play.
Very familiar with Metrolina
Fairgrounds. Right, that was the big event back then. So Curtis taught me, and one Saturday I was off. I worked for this other company. He said, hey, what you doing Saturday? I said, nothing. He said, why don't you go with me to this beach music festival? And I'm like, okay, whatever that was. And I was back then, I was a metalhead. Grew up in loving 80s and 90s hair metal music, and listened to a little bit of everything, but I really liked hair metal. So we went down and pulled into Metrolina Fairgrounds, and I remember it was the chairman of the board, the Shakers, the Band of Oz, and Delbert McClain. I mean, what a lineup.
Yeah, of course, right.
Didn't have a clue who anymore. I mean, I've heard the names, but really...
Now you know.
I know. But we're sitting there, and we got there, and we're walking around, and I'm looking at my brother, and I'm like, who are all these guys up here in these blue leisure suits? Because all the bands back then wore these suits that looked alike. And Curtis said, well, that's just what they do. They're like a little show band stuff. And I remember I watched the Band of Oz, and I was, that's pretty cool, They're a good band. And then watched, of course, Ember Shakers, great band. But what got me into it, General Johnson, the chairman of the board, got up there. And it just blew my mind to hear that this guy could dangle on a string, and there's 15,000 people out there dangling the string. And I'm like, whoa, he's got every one of these people in the palm of his hand. And that's when I started learning about beach music. And, of course, learning about General's past history, because you think of beach music, he's a local guy. Didn't realize, General was Holland Dozier, Holland and Johnson. He was a writer for Motown. And I started doing a little research and found out and got to be friends with General and talking to him. And I was just amazed. I was like, wow, you left Motown to come down here. Why would you do that? And he goes, well, a niche market. He said, I'll own it, down here. Everybody just loves me. I'm like, and I used to call him the King of Swing. That's what he was. And that's what kind of really got me into beach music. I was just amazed at how much, and the bands and the family atmosphere. Because all these guys would come off and they were all so nice and everything. And I'm like, man, these guys are pretty cool, I've been around other musicians that were snobby and stuff, but all these guys were super nice. Bo Schrantz, Butch Barnes, and Keith. All these guys were just great people. General was as nice as he could be. Danny Woods, Danny became a good friend in later years. But I was just amazed at it, and that's what kind of got me hooked on beach music. And of course, I'd played, in private parties, I'd played a lot of beach music. But what started in 1995, Curtis, my brother, was working at WRDX in Salisbury, which was a 100,000 watt beach and only station.
Big station.
It was huge. It was the only station.
Where was the station?
Salisbury.
Okay.
Salisbury, North Carolina. It's called Beach 106.5.
Okay.
And so Curtis was working up there, and Billy Scott came by one day, and they got to talking about the industry. And Billy's talking about all these clubs are closing down, and all the bands were singing, nobody was recording any new music but General Johnson, basically back then. And he said, we got to figure out some way of getting people out to record new music. And so they put their heads together and think, well, the only way we know to do that is give them an award for doing something. So the award show actually started based off that.
So that's why the very first one was in Salisbury then. Okay.
But what happened, we all got together. Our first meeting actually took place at a Pizza Hut in Andrew, North Carolina. There was people, I think it was myself, Curtis, Billy Scott, Butch Halpin, who at that time was the police chief and manager. Gary Peacock had Club Faces and Done. He was managing it. Jim Quick was there. They were new, to it. So we all had a little meeting and got talking about it. And that's a good idea. We need to have this award show. So Curtis was also not only working in Salisbury, but he was the DJ at Rascals Lounge at the Holiday Inn, Jake Alexander Boulevard in Salisbury. They had a beach night every Thursday night, which was sponsored by Bruce Hayes of Hayes Jewelers.
Okay.
So we got to talking to them. They said, man, we'd love to do something like that. So they gave us the ballroom for free on a Sunday. Wouldn't charge us for it. We went out and started calling all these guys. We had a guy said, hey, I'll donate the sound system, and all that stuff. And next thing you know, we had a little party planned. So we started reaching out to all these people in the industry and said, hey, we're going to have this little show, a little award show. We want to thank some people, do a Hall of Fame kind of thing. And the next thing you know, there's 600-700 people there. The funny part was there was hardly any fans there. It was all people in the industry. I mean, I'm talking Cecil Corbin, Bill Griffin, Bill Doggett, General Johnson, Danny Woods, the Tans, the Drifters. All of them were there. And you look around, there was like, oh man, all these people are artists. There's hardly anybody here. And it started out to be, it's supposed to be one band. It's supposed to be Dink Perry and the Breeze Band playing 3 or 4 songs.
Okay.
Well, it ended up about 20 bands on the show. It started like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it ended at 2:30 a.m. this morning. I'll put it this way. We had the Embers playing in Rascals Lounge for the after party. They were done packing up, walking in when we were finishing the award show.
Oh.
And it started, and everybody wanted to be on there, so we had more and more bands. Coastline came out and played. The Breeze was there. They played. Bo Schrantz got up and sang. Joe Pope, the Tams got up and sang. Bill Pinckney got up and sang. I mean, it just went on. And so it just lasted forever. But it was fun, even though it lasted forever. And a lot of people don't know this too about if you ever watch the Grammys or ACMs and all that stuff, they don't realize those actually start early in the day. You're just seeing the last 3 hours of it.
Yeah.
Those shows are 10 hours long. People don't realize that. You're only seeing the last part of the show. Yeah, it starts out because you hear these awards were given earlier in the day, the technical awards.
Okay.
All that stuff's given earlier in the day. The only thing you see is the people stuff at the end, the male vocalists, female vocalists, all that stuff. But all the rest of their awards, kind of like our Saturday Industry Awards. We just divided it, instead of having one huge long day, we decided to divide it up in 2 days. So we do one Saturday and one Sunday.
That seems to work well.
It works out great. It was a lot less. You have been sitting there for 10 or 12 hours, but it was kind of crazy. But that's how we got kind of started in it. And I was really just a gopher the first year in 95. I was helping set up stage, set up lighting and stuff. And that went on for a few years as I just done whatever needed to be done. I was, I'm a team player. So my brothers and sisters and my parents and all that stuff. And we just got into it. Family started coming and helping out. And in 1999, we had a little business disagreement with, of course, Billy. And Billy decided he'd resign and left. And my parents and my actually mother and Curtis came down to meet with the theater and Harold Worley, because we moved down here in 98. Of course, first year we were in Salisbury, second year and third year we were in Charlotte. And we just tried to figure out a way to get more people to come. And we got talking. We said, well, everybody wants to go to the beach, but nobody wants to go to Charlotte. So
where did you go in Charlotte? Where was it?
The second year we done the award show, we were at the Oasis Shrine Temple.
Okay.
The third year we were at Ovens Auditorium.
Okay.
And like I said, after that show, we were sitting over at what used to be the Holiday Inn right there beside it that night talking. I said, we need to maybe just take it to Myrtle Beach, the home of Shag. That's where we need to go down there, down where beach music, the home of it is now. So we got to talking, and we actually came down and met with, we were working on a song of Steve Gatlin of the Gatlin Brothers. He was doing a beach album. So Curtis was helping produce some of that in the studio, Marion Carter, Repeat Records.
Well, I'd never heard that the Gatlins did a beach album.
Yeah, Steve did. And so Steve, they had the Gatlin Theater down here, down on, south end, down on 1551 in Waccamaw. So we talked to Steve, said, yes, sir, come on down here. We'll do the ticket sales, we'll do the whole 9 yards. He said, the only thing I ask is, get a couple of your beach guys on my show the night before, because on Saturday night there was a big Gatlin show. And of course, Steve, sometimes Larry would come, sometimes all of them were here.
Yeah.
But Steve would do a show, and just like the theater does, all the time. And so we had Drifters, the Clovers, and the Platters that happened to be there for our show. So he brought them out, and they all sang a song on his show, one song on his show. Of course, his band backed him up and everything.
Yeah.
And he loved it. Of course, that went over great show. One of the biggest attendance we'd had, at the time we had maybe 1,000 people attend it. And so, and that wasn't including artists. We had artists backstage. Of course, it wasn't nowhere near as big as it is now. So the following year, of course, the Gatlins sold out, and it became Crook and Chase Theater. And I don't remember Crook and Chase from Nashville started doing their show down here. Well, they called us and said, hey, keep it here. We'd love to have you here. So we ended up doing interviews on Crook and Chase. Billy and Curtis did, and we did the show on Crook and Chase. Had a great turnout. Everything worked great. Well, of course, Crook and Chase sold out.
Now, how long did they?
They were only there for a year.
Okay.
So that was 1998 was the Gatlins. 1999 was Crook and Chase. Well, we came up to North Myrtle because we were doing everything down there. And we came up and met with Harold Worley and said, we want to bring the show at this end. And we actually met with Legends Theater, which was Eddie Miles at the time.
Yeah.
And we just, we were going to do it there, but they had so much going on, we couldn't get a date in there to work it, because we had to do it. The reason we always do it the second week in November, because that's the slowest time for bands. We averaged it out and looked what time is the slowest we can get more bands there. Second week in November, it was like a dead weekend for bands everywhere, because we had several band people, as either board members or consultants, and they're like, second week in November. So that's how it became the second week in November. We ended up going down and meeting with the Alabama Theater, because we couldn't get nothing doing at Legends. And Alabama said, we're glad to do it. So we worked out a deal with them. The first year we did the show, everything went really great, really smooth. So, but what happened in that meantime is that's when Billy retired. Well, my mother and Curtis came down. They were 2/3 of the board. They came down and met with Mr. Worley. And Harold said, I'd love to have it here. We'll see what we do. And of course, Harold was kind of skeptical about what was going on. Harold's a businessman.
Yep.
And so they went over and met with the theater. Of course, in their meeting, I wasn't at the meeting, and I got elected president. So my mother came back. She said, okay, we're going to keep doing it, because they were going to sell the award show. Actually going to see if somebody had offered to buy it, and they were going to sell it. And Harold said, y'all need to keep it going. That's the only way it's going to keep going. Y'all have to do it. It's got to be somebody that knows what's going on. Yeah. He said, so y'all need to keep it. And so they had a little meeting and elected me president. And I found out when they came home, I said, by the way, you're in charge. Because I had business. I'd worked for a corporation for 10 years. I had business experience running it as a business, so we were running it as a business. I said, okay, because we originally started off as a nonprofit. And then we switched over to a for-profit to get some more sponsors and stuff. So second year, I took over in 2001, basically, as the president. And we had our first year of actually making money. Because I ran it as a business. So you had to start saying no and yes and no, and Curtis couldn't say no, so they got me to do it. So I said, okay, so we turned to profit.
Good fit.
Yeah, so everything worked out good, and so it's just gotten bigger and bigger. But basically, that's how I got involved with beach music, and that's how I got involved with the award shows. I got elected because I wasn't there. But it's been going ever since. And like I said, when we started it, we figured it'd go 5 or 6 years, and that'd be the end of it. And now we're 31 years into it. It's just became something we tried to keep going. And the funny part was, after our first year, Harold Worley came up and said, you guys are doing good. We filled this hotel up. He said, November's always dead, and y'all filled this thing up. You got my attention. We need to keep this going. So that's how we kept going. And, Harold's was behind it, helped us, keep things going, and financially and everything stood behind us and said, whatever you need, And plus, we've had a lot of volunteers. I mean, if it wasn't for the volunteers, we couldn't do this show. A lot of people don't realize all the door workers stuff and people that are down here are friends of mine or used to work for us in the club business in Southern Pines. So they're all door workers. They all used to work our doors. They're bouncers for us, and they're friends, and they love coming down here. And they don't, not for a dime. They just come down here to do it. They work a couple nights. We give them a night free in the hotel. They get to relax tonight and have a good time. And they love it. They come back every year, and it's like I said, it's a family atmosphere. They've got to know all the artists. And it's the only weekend, and you'll notice this when you're here, it's the only weekend when all these artists are here like the whole weekend. Most of the time, these guys see each other for a couple minutes at a festival, and they're off to play somewhere else that night. It's the only time where they try not to leave the whole weekend. They're all down here, and you never know who you're going to see up on the stage. I mean, we've had after parties where there might be 12 horns up on stage, all from different bands. You'll see a guitar player from one band playing with a bass player and a trumpet player from a different band. It's just a fun thing. It's like a family atmosphere. A lot of these guys have played together in other bands, so they just feel like it's like a family reunion. We call it a family reunion because that's basically what it is. And we give away a few awards while we're at it. But most of our awards, of course, are release-based, so they have to have something out. It's to force people to record new music. That's the whole reason we started it. That's what it was all about.
From the beginning.
And it did. It emphasized, and people started recording new stuff. Shaker started recording new stuff. Ember started recording new. Oz started recording new stuff. And that's what it's all about. Just get it. That's the only way we could keep the industry alive. If we weren't putting new stuff out, it was just going to kind of keep going down the hill. So that's what it worked out. And to tell you a funny story, about the third or fourth year when we came down here, of course, Fat Harold's has always had its built-in audience. And the first couple of years we came down here, Fat Harold looked at us and said, well, I don't want to interrupt my stuff. We don't really want to be involved. We've got our normal Friday, Saturday night stuff. We want to keep it that way. So at that time, we had the Spanish Gay, and we had the OD Beach Club, and we had Ducks and Pirates Cove. And that's who the clubs were involved. Well, the second year we came down here, Fat Harold sent Gary Bass over and said, Fat Harold wants to talk to you before you leave here Sunday. I said, okay. So I walked down. I said, Fat Harold, what's up? He said, we got to be involved next year. I said, why? He said, we were closed by 10 o'clock. I can't handle that because everybody wanted to come to the event. So Fat Harold said, hey, what do we got to do and be involved? He said, well, just tell us. We'll be glad to work with you. We offered. You said no. He goes, well, I didn't think I need you, but apparently I do. So he goes, I couldn't believe we were closed, last year, Friday and Saturday night, we were closed at 10 o'clock. Wasn't nobody here. I said, well, I noticed Gary was at Ducks with me at 10 o'clock. And Gary looked at me, said, we're done. We're closed. And so that's how Fat Harold's got involved. And it's kind of been that way ever since. And of course, Pirates Cove changed hands. So it kind of went away from there because they kind of went away from beach music. And I mean, Ducks basically has two, but Ducks, the guys of Ducks, even the new owners, they have bands that play a little beach music there that weekend. So, and they let our people come in. So it's, we try to keep it. It's a small industry. We're trying to keep as much people involved. We don't want to shut anybody out. So we tell anybody, if you want to be involved, just let us know. We try to work it out some way where I advertise and put it on the flyer, so that's how Deckers got involved. Back to Scott and Amy just comment, say, hey, how do we get involved? And I said, well, I'll be glad to put you on the flyer. If y'all have some, artists or something. So they started doing like little things with Ricky Godfrey and Ron McDaniel, and that's how they got involved. Of course, they're small. It's hard for them to do anything big, especially that time of year, because you don't know what the temperature is going to be. We've been lucky the last several years that the weather's been in the 70s, but we have had a few years where it's cold. So whatever, Deckers has to do most time, it has to be planned on being inside. Yes. And, it's not a very big place, so they can't do big bands. So they've been doing like Ricky Godfrey, Rhonda McDaniel, they do little two-piece bands, which is fine. But that way they're still involved, and we put them on the flyers, being part of it. And a lot of our people, they move around. We try to stagger the bands so they play at different times. Yeah. So when one band quits, you don't go to another place that the band's on break too. We try to make it where there's always a band playing.
Oh, okay.
So we stagger it 15 to 30 minutes. You look at the schedule, everybody won't you start them at the same time? That's why. We want to keep a band playing, so if somebody, hey, they quit playing, we're going to take a break. We're going to go over here and see, so-and-so over here at Fat Harold's. They'll go see them a little while, and then they'd walk over to Dutch for a little while, and they'd walk up to Deckers for a little while, and then they come back to OD Resort and go to OD, which is Hoto's now, which was OD Beach Club back then, Hoto's and the game. And that way they could just kind of move around and see all the people playing. And we tried to always do that every year, and that we've done that ever since. We try to have some of the best bands we can get. a lot of the misconception is we book the bands, straight out beside who's there, but not. The clubs have a lot of say so who's there.
Okay.
Because it's business. It's about business. We had some situations that's come up over the past few years where they, bands get mad at us, not looking at us. Well, it's not really up to us. It is a business. It is their club.
So, Pat Harrelson, you just give them options.
We give them a list of people that are available that said they want to be a part of it.
Okay.
And they said, okay, well, we want this person or this person. It's their business. It's their place. So and of course, Lulu and Harold and all these people are involved on who they get.
Yeah.
Of course, we know some bands can't play at the smaller venues. It's kind of hard to play the Embers or Band of Oz or Swing Day, some of these places at some of the smaller clubs, because it's a revenue.
Physically don't fit.
Well, they don't fit, and it does have to pay for itself. If it doesn't pay for itself, we can't keep it going. It's got to make money somehow, to keep it. And the weekend stuff is actually totally separate from the award show. We've always treated it totally separate. Now, a lot of people outside see, okay, well, if we're playing on the show where you should, but I said, no, it doesn't work that way. This is all about making enough money to pay for what it costs to do the show at the theater. A lot of people don't realize it's over a $50,000 day over there.
Wow. Okay.
By the time we pay the rent, we pay the production, we pay video production, the program for the show, the taxes, you know about it in the business down here. They have occupancy taxes and all this stuff we have to pay. And it adds up well over $50,000 a year that we have to make in that 4 or 5 hours over there. And so that's what the clubs are for, is to make the revenue back from that, to help offset all the stuff, all the hotel rooms we have to bring the staff and bring down here. So it's a large investment every year. So
quite a budget.
But we have to work with the clubs. We've got to make them happy too. So we'll give them lists and say, hey, here's a bunch of people that are available. And they say, well, this band will work good for me, or this band won't, or I like this band. And so, we try to appease everybody we can. But we can't book everybody. That's just the way it is. There's only so many slots. We try to do it, but we try to work with all the clubs to make them happy. We try to keep them all happy. It's politics. You know how it is. It's hard to do it, but we've always tried to stay out of the politics.
But the thing I like what I'm hearing is you don't have to go out and beg people to come. They beg you for the opportunity to be a part of it, which means it's nothing but to continue growing.
That's right. We turn down bands every year for like the award show. I've only got like 14 or 15 slots, and I get 30 offers every year. And we tell them, okay, we kind of like it. Look at who's nominated. And I said, we kind of got to go with the nominees.
Yes,
that's what the people are voting for. That's who they're pulling for. So we go after them first. We always go after the ones that are heavily nominated first. Now, just one nomination is a little bit different than somebody's nominated 6 or 7 times. We try to get them as much as we can. But like I said, the clubs have say so what happens on the club nights. We do, shows, we do have this decision on who's on the shows.
Yes, right.
And so I turned over the Saturday show because it just got to be so much trying to handle the theater, the Saturday show, the Sunday show, and all. It was so much for me and my sister and to kind of handle everything. So Chad was always good at doing stuff. I said, well, Chad, I'm gonna give you Saturday. I said, if you take Saturday, you run with it, do what you want to with it. So that's Chad's sweet. So he handles the showcase. I work with him, of course. We help book each other. But Chad handles the industry awards. That's his baby. I said, you do what you want to. And, just as long as you run it by me, I'm cool with it. And we've never had no issue. And Chad's always taking care of it 100%. He does a professional job. If you notice, that's the reason he's down here doing a lot of stuff for the surf and different stuff. But Chad's always handled it 100%. And if it wasn't for him, we couldn't keep doing it, because he doesn't understand how much he means to me. It's rough. But I turn that over to Chad. He takes care of this couple with the showcase, booking the showcase band. He books the acts on the Saturday show. And of course, we try to make that a fun show. That's really that's in the game. So we try to make that. It's one we have a bar, and of course, they ain't even get alcohol at the Alabama Theater, which we couldn't for years. But
Speaking of Chad, we've already had Chad in another podcast. With you. Great stories that Chad has.
Well, Chad's been in it for a long time.
Yes, he has.
I can tell you some funny stories about him. But
anyway,
what's down that? The first time I met Chad Sane at Beau Schrump's on the same night, so that was ugly. But no, me and Curtis, like I said, I used to travel with him a lot of times when he go to these private parties. We used to play up in Walnut Cove for the Walnut Cove Shag Club, which is up above Winston-Salem. And back in that day, there was a big nightclub called The Guard in Winston-Salem. It was a huge club. It had huge the beach bands played there. Plus, they had like a little shag club that went with it. And I remember Curtis was telling me about this place, The Guard. It's huge. You need to go check it out. So I go with him to Walnut Cove one night. We leave there and we come back by. And we stop by and we walk in. It was a huge building, but we walk in and we walk over and there's this little club that's maybe 75, 80 feet long and maybe 25 foot wide. There's a DJ booth up in the corner and these booth seats. And I'm like, I thought this place was huge. Curtis said, oh, this is not the guard. The guard's over there in that other room. I went, what other room? I hadn't seen no other room. And it looked like a closet door. And I'm like, what? That's like a coat closet or something. He goes, go open up the door, and here's like an 8,000 square foot room. I'm like, and of course, I heard the noise. I was trying to figure out where it's coming from, and the Shakers were on stage.
Oh, what? Okay.
They were finishing up. We walk in. Of course, Chad was DJing, so Chad starts playing music right there, walking off. And Chad needed to go to the restroom, so he was calling Curtis during a song. He was singing during the song to tell Curtis to come relieve him for a couple minutes. And Curtis said, come on up here. So we went up there, and of course, next thing I know, like I said, I was the top 40 DJ. Curtis said, you play. So stuck me up there, and that's back when we done the old vinyl. So I pulled up some songs and played. Chad was like, okay, wow. So that's where I met Chad that night. And of course, we're sitting out back talking, and that's where I met the Shakers and met Bo Schrumps that
so
night.
You know Chad and Bo how long now?
About 40 years probably.
Wow.
I mean, it's been a long time, but like I said, I've been in the mobile DJ business probably pretty much full time over 40 years now. Started when I was 13 and I'm 59, so that tells you how long I've been doing it. But that's kind of how I got into the beach music industry and how I ended up down here at the Gay.
Yeah.
So a lot of people say, well, how did you end up down here at the Gay from Pinehurst? I said, well, that's another long story. And I said, actually, we were down here doing that award show back in 2000. And we had some stuff going on at the Gay, and they had a problem that afternoon with the sound system or something. Mr. Worley made a comment that, his sound guy was having some health issues, and the guy came down and done all his sound work for him. I said, what's the problem? I said, I can look at it. And he said, you know how to work on this stuff? I said, yeah, I do sound system installation too. I do mobile DJ sound system. I said, I put sound systems in churches and stuff. He goes, well, come here for a minute. So I went back there and I fixed it in a couple of minutes. He says, you mind helping me out while my guy's having his health issues? And I said, yeah, well, that was 25 years ago. So I'm still here helping out, but that's how it came up. We put the screen in down the Gay, and it can get complicated if you don't do it all the time. So I'm pretty much the only one. Me and a couple other people know how to run the screens and the light show and all that stuff. So that's how I kind of got stuck in here. So anytime the Gay is open, you need to be here. So that's basically how I'm the house DJ at the Gay, but I'm also the AV tech. I take care of the sound system at Fair Harold's, the Pavilion, Hodos, and anywhere AV stuff needs to be done, I can basically take care of, because that's what I used to do. And I've kind of retired from doing the installation now because I'm staying so busy down here. But, we got some moments in the weekend down here. So it's crazy. Stay busy all the time.
Listen, would you believe we've already gone our time for today?
No, I wouldn't doubt.
We are not even close to hearing all the stories that we want to hear and we're going to hear. Can you come back and do another session?
Yes, sir. Be glad to.
Folks, you heard it straight from Mr. Peter Carpenter. You just heard part one. I don't know what I'm going to name this one yet. There's so much good information in this first one.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. Okay, I like that. So, in the beginning will be followed in a few weeks. Thanks for being here with Surfside Stories. I look forward to seeing you next week.